You work hard, you finish in a top 2 seed, and what is your reward? It's to play the Boston Bruins. We're going to talk about all the reasons that the Bruins are going to completely spoil and upset the East and come out as the Stanley Cup champions again this year. The Bruins have the horses to do it. We're going to tell you why, but we're also going to tell you the reasons that Boston may not actually win the cup. So why don't we talk about all things Bruins? Let's go ahead and get after it, Boston fans. This video series on our channel is brought to you by BetUS. We use BetUS's odds and odds makers to help us rank our teams in this video series. Look, if you're going to invest millions of dollars in odds makers, actuaries, and mathematical data science in order to go ahead and rank the NHL, who are we to tell Vegas or any of these folks that they're wrong in $1 billion a year business? And if you want to go ahead and be right or beat the odds makers, sponsor us by going down below and clicking the link if you're over the age of majority, heading over to betus.com to get your 125% playoff bonus to go ahead and beat the odds makers and pick your favorite team to win the Stanley Cup or daily NHL betting. So Boston isn't quite the underdog in the ranking systems that you may think that they are. They are tied for number 7 right now. They have plus 1,600 odds if you head over to BetUS and use code HGS if you believe in the Bruins. That's a pretty darn good payout for Boston. Boston comes from the hardest division in the NHL right now, the Atlantic. They are playoff ready. They are a beast of a team, and they are likely to maybe upset the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's go into all the reasons why. Number 1 is going to be team defense. Who is the only team in the NHL better than the Carolina Hurricanes at team defense? Who are the Boston Bruins? Ding, ding, ding. The Boston Bruins are the number 1 defensive team in the NHL. And what a battle, or perhaps boring battle if you don't like defensive hockey, they're going to have with the Carolina Hurricanes, who are number 2. The team defense for Boston consists of the number 1 corsi against. That means the least amount of shots are directed towards their net area. They are number 1 at preventing scoring chances against as well too. So there isn't a lot of scoring chances that go against them. And they are number 1 at preventing high danger chances against them. Danger, danger, Will Robinson? Nope. Not if you're the Boston Bruins. You kick that stuff to the curb. Take a look at Boston's 5v5 defense. It is ice cold around the net. They give Swayman and Ullmark all the reasons in the world to shine. The only place that Boston gives up chances is on the right side point on our screen. Left side point if you're counting a defenseman's shooting side. So that's the only place of concern for Boston. And at the end of the day, shots from the point really aren't all that concerning. So this is a beast of a defensive team. Rosters or depth charts, lines aren't fully present or in order. The source, frozenpool.dobbersports.com or dailyfaceoff.com. Both are the same. Number 2, rankings. We use wins above replacement, known as WAR. WAR comprises goals, assists, power play points, PK points, defense, shots, and more. It is an all-encompassing stat. Source is evolvinghockey.com. Player classifications are my choice. Franchise, elite, top line, top 6, middle 6, third line, bottom 6, fourth line, enforcer, depth in that order. Color grading is based on classification and rank. Gold is overperforming, white is performing as expected, and red is underperforming or dust. Another reason they're going to win the Stanley Cup is the tough roster. We talk about top teams, we talk about balanced rosters, elite players. This is a tough roster. It's always been a tough roster. It isn't a delusion. Boston fans, you know this. Bruins hockey is tough hockey, but it is not made up. It is found in truth. The other truth of the matter is you can't intimidate the Bruins with heavy hockey. It's not going to work. Actually, they're one of the heaviest teams in the NHL this year. They're also one of the most aggressive. But even when they weren't and they won the Stanley Cup, you still cannot intimidate them. This is a tough team. They also have the best captain in Patrice Bergeron. He's a franchise player. You hear me talk about this all the time on the channel. If you don't understand that Bergeron isn't a top 5 player in the NHL, you don't understand the NHL. I'll take that one to the bank. Patrice Bergeron is the most underrated franchise player maybe to ever play in the NHL. He's joined by Brad Marchand, who is also a franchise winger, and David Pasternk, who has at times moved down to the second line with Taylor Hall and Charlie Coyle. So you never know where that perfection line is going to go. Is it going to break up? Are they going to find balance? Are they going to go together? But we're going to keep them together for now. The perfection line is all franchise. After that, Charlie Coyle does his job as a second line center. He's nothing to write home about. I would say that's a weak point for them, but he's not bad. So he's not underperforming. He's not overperforming. He just does his job. Jake Debrusk, the same thing. Middle six player. Maybe he's starting to tap into his potential. Maybe not, but he is ranked as a top six player. And again, he does his job. He's not costing the Bruins anything. Taylor Hall has been elite this year. He was elite when he was drafted. Tell me the number one overall pick in an NHL draft, not named Nail Yakupov or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, isn't elite. Very rare that it doesn't happen. And Hall is elite. He's ranked number 31 in the NHL this year. He's having a great year. Then we go ahead and take a look at the bottom six, and the bottom six for the Bruins is fine. Actually, the only red flag they have is Nick Foligno, and Nick Foligno is a really tough hockey player. So I jokingly have him in the press box because he's ranked 616th. I have no idea how the former captain has fallen down that far. I was a big fan of him going over to Boston. I thought he would fit the Bruins like a glove, but it just really hasn't worked out for Foligno. Maybe he's totally fallen off a cliff. It's been like Mike Richards, and this is the end of his career. He was great one day and bad the next. So technically you should sit in the press box, but those Foligno brothers are really tough. So you might want them in the roster. They can cause a lot of havoc out there. When you're taking a look at the defenseman, Charlie McAvoy, I said it at the beginning of the year and people made me eat dust for it. I said McAvoy's the best defenseman in the NHL, and he finishes as number 2. That's pretty good considering all the elite defensemen I had to choose from. Did not take the safe pick. Charlie McAvoy is an amazing defenseman. He proved it this year, finishing as number 2. That is their 4th franchise player. Perfection line plus McAvoy. The guy's amazing. Grzelcyk is an elite defenseman. Unfortunately, they're both small. That's why Torrey Krug ended up having to leave. You can't have too many small defensemen, but they have 2. It's interesting they're paired together. For now, I think they'll end up breaking them up, and Lindholm will go back to playing with McAvoy because Lindholm is a beast. Lindholm does his job. Look, his ranking isn't ideal, and it is really tough to get a good ranking in wins above replacement or any advanced stat when you change teams mid-year because it just throws everything through a loop. Lindholm is a good player, so Lindholm, Grzelcyk, and McAvoy carry this team. You've heard me say it again and again and again. All you need is 3 defensemen to get you through because the top pairing defense are going to eat up 50% of your time in the playoffs. Your second pairing just has to make sure they don't get scored on. And if you have an elite player in your second pair, that is quite good. And when you have these 3, you by default have to have one of the 3 in your second pair, but it won't be McAvoy. Brandon Carlo is playing amazing as well. He's a top 4 defenseman who is overperforming. And then Riley, Clifton, and Forbert, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just doing their job. They're third pairing guys. There's very few holes in this. Look, forwards can fall down the ranking list quite far because there's a lot more forwards than there is defensemen. But when you only have a 62 top rated defenseman in the NHL, you got to go ahead and think, there's less of them. So when you have a guy like Riley and Clifton playing in your 5-6 hole down there, it is pretty much a luxury at that point. Going ahead and looking at the goalies, you got Ullmark and you got Swayman. Look, I got Ullmark as their starter right now, but you've heard me say it repeatedly. He shouldn't be. I know he's hot. I don't care. Swayman's the better goalie. I'm going to die on that hill. He's ranked better. He's got a better save percentage, but Ullmark has had a great little run leading up to the playoffs, and he's paid more, so he'll probably end up starting. Another reason they're going to end up winning in the playoffs is the perfection line. Maybe it'll be broken up, maybe not, but this line is so damn good, and it features Charlie McAvoy at this point. So when you take a look at the Boston Bruins, they have 4 franchise caliber players. In my opinion, it's the 4 franchise players that have to carry this team. The other thing I know what you're saying is, well, Ryan, if you shut down the top line or their top 4, then Boston goes away. And that is kind of true. So even though you have 4 elite players that can carry your team all the way to a cup, you do feel a little bit exposed when you have so much riding on those 4 players. Another reason they may end up winning the Stanley Cup is the fact they got lucky and they switched over to the Metro Division. They got to play Carolina. That's a tough matchup, but they're lucky because Carolina just lost their starting goalie. Maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't. And even if Freddie Anderson is back, maybe he's not 100%. That is a huge sigh of relief. That is not a bad thing for Boston. Look, I think Carolina is probably a tougher matchup than the Leafs. maybe not more than the Bolts. They're very close, all three of these teams, but I'd rather play Carolina without Freddie Anderson than either of those two teams. Well, no, that's a lie. I'd rather play the Leafs because you're in their head and, you know, that's just what Boston does. But Carolina's a good draw. And after you beat Carolina, you get the New York Rangers ranked 10th and you get the Pittsburgh Penguins ranked 7th. So the Rangers are everybody's darling right now. Sorry, Bruins fans. Everyone in the world loves the Rangers. You know, they're the Leafs of the States, a very popular team. So are the Bruins, but everybody loves the Rangers. As you can tell, I lean towards the Bruins, have since this channel started. I just like the cut of their jib. Pittsburgh, they're kind of looking tired. No Jarry as well either. So no Anderson, no Jarry if Pittsburgh ends up getting through New York. But if New York gets through, no big deal. After their top 6 and Igor Shesterkin, they don't have much. And the Bruins just showed the Rangers they can beat them. So there you go. The Atlantic, maybe they're tired by the time they end up actually playing Boston. So the Atlantic's going to be a bloodbath. Maybe by the time Boston gets to play them, they may be an elite team. They could be a little bit tired. And then, yes, they have Colorado or Calgary in the finals, most likely from the West, but either way, it's going to be the Western champion. It'll be a good team. The final reason they may end up winning the Stanley Cup is they are a heavy and aggressive team. If you subscribe to Tough Hockey Wins Stanley Cups, and I did a video on that, subscribe to the channel, go look through it. You will find it. It's only a few videos down. You can find out why tough hockey matters in the playoffs. It's got a breakdown here, and it says, yeah, tough hockey statistically does contribute to Stanley Cup wins. So if you believe in that and you believe in the data and you believe in your heart that tough hockey wins cups, the Bruins are in a great position to do that. Let's start with the reasons that they may not win the cup though. And it's the goalie controversy. And maybe it's just a controversy in my head because Bruins fans on here always let me know what's going on. Look, guys, you've heard me say it, it's Swayman. When you go ahead and look at the Boston defense, you can see it. When you look at the Boston goaltending though, it's the Boston saving 2021, 2022, just below here. Frankly, you don't want to see a lot of red on a goalie map when you see a lot of blue on the team defense map. So that means they're getting a below average amount of shots coming at them when we know Boston is #1 in defense, and they're still letting in far too many goals. That's a problem. That shows you have a goalie problem. We know Swayman has had a couple challenges here and there to start the year. We know Ullmark had a lot of challenges to start the year, and then Rask we won't even go into. So this graph combines all of these goalies and all of their troubles, but we know at the end of the day, which one you go with, this could be a problem. I also hate teams that switch between goalies. So if they do end up starting Ullmark and then they switch to Swayman at the first sign of trouble, you just mess with these goalies' heads. I cannot think of a team that flip-flopped between goalies and ended up winning it. Murray and Fleury might have been the only example, but they really did double all in and just say it's going to be Matt Murray's net. Everybody else, Drieger and Bobrovsky when they ended up going in, Schneider and Luongo when they were battling for it. Every time there's goalie controversy, Fleury and Lehner, it's always Fleury in a goalie controversy, isn't? I don't know why. He's really good. But either way, when you get into these in the playoffs, it doesn't work. So Boston's going to go ahead and trade between goalies and not pick a designated starter who should be Jermey Swayman. Another reason they might lose is actually their scoring. So Boston actually is a pretty good offense when it comes to generating chances. But you can see here on the left, the 5v5 offense, which is the shots, it shows you that they have a #10 ranked Corsi for. That's shots going towards the net. It's not good. It's not great. You might be like, hey, coach, there's a lot of red in that map. There is, but it's not that dark red. And when you go ahead and look at teams like the Florida Panthers or the Toronto Maple Leafs, you realize what a really good shooting and scoring team looks like. So Boston's actually below average for the playoffs. Great defense, but this is a team that does like to win by 1 goal, and this is a team very comfortable going into a third period with a tie and very comfortable in a 1-1 game. So that's just Bruins hockey, but not scoring always makes you feel, if you're a Bruins fan, tell me if I'm wrong below in the comments, but you always feel nervous and on the edge of your seat because for God's sakes in the playoffs, can you guys just win like 7-1 one game? Nope, it's always got to be 2-1. However, the good news about the Bruins is when it comes to scoring and they're down 3-1 going into the third, they're also oddly confident, and usually it works out for them. They're pretty good at playing from behind. When it comes to goals for, they're number 15, which actually puts them at the bottom of the playoffs. That's not where you want to be. You can see their finishing. It's ice cold. Or you can go ahead and take a look at their finishing chart and go, they got too much talent up front. So if they're in a slump right now, imagine the damage they're going to do in the playoffs. if they wake up. Boston special teams, this is nothing to write home about. This is one of the lower ones out there. Surprising, because Boston usually prides itself on its kill. For a team that is so good defensively, they are not that great on the kill. They couldn't hold a candle to the Carolina Hurricanes, who are number 1, but that's okay because the Carolina Hurricanes have a mediocre power play. So when they're playing the Canes, this will match up well. When you take a look at their penalty kill, I don't even want to say it's fine. It's below average. It's number 10 in the NHL. It's 81.5. That will not get it done. It's got to be better in the playoffs. Their power play is 16%, 20.8. Normally I sit here and go, if you don't have a good power play, you're not going to win. But the Bruins are the only team in the past 30 years that has ever proven that wrong. They had an absolute trash power play when they won the Stanley Cup, led by Thomas Caberlet. Really nailed that one, boys. Just kept putting them out there though. So whatever, it worked. I don't think they scored until the finals. That's how bad their power play was when they won the Stanley Cup. So if there's one team that can prove you can do it with a bad power play, it's the Bruins, but I still don't want to go into the playoffs with a bad power play. Ugh. And finally, the other reason they may end up losing is the Atlantic and the West. Look, we just said the Metro is a reason they might get through it, but let's be honest. The Atlantic is still the Atlantic, and they're going to have to play them in the conference finals if they make it through the Metro. And then their reward for that is the best team in the West. And there's 2 good teams in the West. But if somebody ends up knocking them off, it doesn't matter who ends up coming at you. Whoever's in the Stanley Cup finals are 2 very good teams. All right, so what's our final list look like? The reasons they're going to win: team defense, best in the show, tough roster. We know Patrice Bergeron is going to take these guys and have them ready. The perfection line featuring Charlie McAvoy. The Metro division is an advantageous draw for the Bruins, and they're big and they're tough. The reason they might lose is their goalie controversy. Scoring leaves something to be desired for the Bruins. Their special teams are a little bit ew, and the Atlantic and the West could upset them even if they get through the Metro. Boston fans, why don't you tell me if I got it right again? I love hearing from Bruins fans. We'll be following you all the way through the playoffs. It's a lot of fun. Go Bruins, go. You are my underdog sweethearts in the playoffs this year.